juggle things with them. Well, first off, thank you very much for making time for us today. In many respects, I see this as a follow-up to a meeting that we had here, in many respects just a few weeks ago, where we talked a lot about our services and supports that we were providing to the county, to the various boroughs and townships here, and helping them do development of commercial as well as other redevelopment assets here. So just a reminder, I mean, this was the piece that we distributed at that time. I know it's, again, a lot to involve, but we also had, I think, a very nice, full and complete, conversation at the time. So we're here today to do two things. First off, to give you a full report on the activities that we have undertaken here in 2018 with the resources that you have entrusted to us, that $17,000, and to respectfully make a request for an additional renewal of that at the same amount here in 2019. We had provided you all, I guess, a little bit more than a week ago now, or about a week ago, a packet of materials that was shared with you all and the commissioners, as well as Stephen here. And so things that we just want to take a moment to highlight as part of this 2019 request. The first thing we'd like to highlight is the many of the things that were done for what we call redevelopment, reuse, redesign, and reinvestment in our downtowns. One thing that I'd just like quickly to highlight in that particular report, that if you start looking through the listing of projects that we dealt with here in 2018, and still have, here one more quarter of 2018 to go. So this is representative of activities basically up through September 30th. You'll notice that when you start looking down this initial list of Molly Pitcher, the Jubilee Cake Studio, Granda Illusion, Precision Fly, and Tackle, that every one of those properties was vacant. And consequently not doing much to add to the resources or not doing much to encourage participation in activities in these downtown areas. And not only as a result of our efforts, not only were there new businesses brought into those places, but you'll also notice that there were a significant number of jobs brought along right with that. And as you look into the next page, there were, again, a number of other vacant properties, or properties, like in the case of the pond, that was a private residence and was now being put to use as a commercial endeavor. So you look at those, kind of the same thing with Third Element Consulting. So these are indeed efforts that have brought about new businesses in communities. They have brought about new investments in the communities, and they have also created new jobs, which, once you have jobs in the community and people working there, there's lots of many different things that people will start to engage in from a commercial standpoint. So I just wanted to take a moment to highlight those particular pieces. And as a result of all of those efforts, there were 15 properties and owner interests that incorporated 21 different businesses, created 82 jobs as a result of these investments, and brought in more than $3.8 million in investments in the downtowns. So the return on investment from the county in this particular instance, I think, was something that was fairly significant and has made significant differences in our downtowns. But that's not all that we do with regards to enhancing our downtowns. We also have a number of downtown development projects and initiatives, which is the second major part of our report. One of the things you all engaged in this morning was signing off on 203 East Main Street, so we can continue the working on the transfer of that property to the Museum Association. That work dealt with what had been an eyesore and a blight and a fire-ravaged property there in downtown Mechanicsburg that had been there for a number of years. Thanks to efforts in particular of Rebecca about raising dollars beyond just CDBG there and working closely with the borough as well as the Museum Association. That fire-ravaged place is now in the process of being transformed into a nice new community asset. Still a few more things to be done there, but that work is well underway and has made some significant progress over the last year with the demolition of the property. So that's one piece. The other one we wanted to highlight was the Veterans Park that also had taken place, the Shippensburg Station, the Lemoyne Passage mural. I don't know if you've had the chance to come off of that I-83. I mean, that is an eye catcher as you come right off of there. What a welcome into that area. It just really does a lot. Specific to Lemoyne, obviously, but that's an intersection also where people can wander off to Camp Hill, go into New Cumberland, but all again, very attractive, eye-catching piece that serves as a nice welcome. Again, that's just some of the things that we try to engage in that enhance the communities and enhance the downtowns. We also get called upon from time to time to help with things like we did in Mount Holly Springs this last year, the residential rental inspection ordinance. We've been called on to assist in a similar effort right here in Carlisle as the redevelopment authority, but also through our housing authority with the Housing Choice Voucher Program. We are big fans of having good quality, safe places for people to rent in our communities. And one of the building blocks for doing that in our communities are things like these rental inspection programs. They really do work to enhance the
Which parts of this is our subsidy targeted at that? Because obviously it doesn't fund all of those things.
Yes, I agree. The monies that we received from you went beyond just helping with those those three boroughs that we received specific dollars for Mechanicsburg, Lemoyne, and Mount Holly Springs. We also received loan proceeds out of Carlisle when loans are actually closed there from time to time. So these monies went towards helping our work that we did throughout the county, things like down there in Shippensburg, things that we've done in other the boroughs and townships here that are helped to be talked about in this these particular two reports. So also the dollars that we received from each of those three boroughs don't cover all of the time and expenses that go into the work that we do in those boroughs. The monies that we receive in all of those places, just like the requests we're doing here today, are relatively modest requests given the needs of the community or the time needed to help address the downtown development or other redevelopment efforts in those areas. So if that answers.
It doesn't, but that's I'll follow up later.
Okay, good. So again, we're doing a variety of things. When you go back and look at the reports, there are things that are happening in Carlisle, Mechanicsburg. I mean, it's work that's taking place throughout all of the trying to do work all throughout the county. And those redevelopment and this community enhancements brought in more than $630,000 so far this year in those 9 communities addressing 18 properties. We also know that there were things that you were particularly interested in about where are our efforts going to be focused in 2019. So we also submitted to you the beginnings of a detailed plan of activities for 2019, the types of programs, projects, and initiatives that we are gearing up to take on. And you'll see that they're again scattered throughout all of the county, trying to make a number of things happen there. But this is early efforts that we're trying to take on. So, Rebecca, other things you'd like to add as you realize your time is pressed today with other pieces, so we're trying to keep this short and just highlight things out of the reports that we're providing you. So, Rebecca?
Well, I was here a year ago and I explained or reminded you that what you see is not all that you get. With Cumberland County's downtown program services, we provide much more than the CDBG rooms. That's usually the only time that I see you, the only time that I'm here. But with 9 months in, 2018 really is a good representation of all that we do and how we impact our downtowns and the communities, and also reflective of their appreciation. 2018 demonstrates how important these partnerships have been, how they've been built, just in terms, not just in terms of lending or real estate transactions, and that we do not operate in a vacuum. Our partners value our services and opportunity to work with us. They send people our way, they rely on us to help provide that nudge to get things going and to make sure that they happen. We are change agents and drivers for good and growth, appropriate growth. We're focused on retail, restaurants, downtown, and community assets. That has not changed. With added online competition, that's not going to change. The internet isn't going anywhere, and neither are we. It is more challenging. So it's really important that we have an advocate dedicated to that community's success, the business's success. Not only can you buy shoes and shelving online, you can now buy savory dinners and salads and have them sent to your home or office even before they're cooked, not just delivery. You look at the work products provided, a sampler of how I spend my time on your behalf, and the dollar values of those efforts. The community projects realize that, frankly, without our assistance, without that hand-holding, would not have happened. Like this morning's request related to 203's Main Street, now days away from the Museum Association starting in earnest the development process there. They're well into the fundraising. In place of a place that had jeopardized the tavern and put a pox and plagued the neighborhood for decades, not just a few years, but for decades. We're responsive, not reactive. We're measured and mindful in our approach and what our good work can do for those communities. To us, results matter, and that's why these communities and these businesses repeatedly turn to us. They've witnessed the impact and seen the results. Sought after, yes. Proven, absolutely. That's why, like Tim mentioned, after working with 3 different boroughs to design, develop, and implement rental inspection ordinances, the big guy, Carlisle Borough, has asked for our help, our assistance in driving them and getting them to yes in terms of a rental inspection ordinance. Many know what we've done in other communities and say, we want some of that. Examples of that have to be things like the Cumberland streetscape, 3 phases, the Lemoyne streetscape, now Mechanicsburg would like one. About face grants, you've heard of them, they've been recognized by DCED and the governor's office. Now Carlisle has a similar program. It's not just for signage, it's for all kinds of storefront improvements, like About Face. The New Cumberland residential facade program that we supported, we developed, and we received funding for. We're looking to tackle some struggling neighborhoods in Lemoyne and other places, West Fairview, some other places. Like 203 East Main Street, these projects do not happen overnight. They can take years to realize. I started working with Molly Pitcher Brewing in 2008, and we're still working with them because there's more to come there. The Jewels of India, Passage to India, we started working with them in 2012. That was our first discussion about a possible Cumberland County location. It may take a long time, but we're in it for the long haul, and we never give up. And it never ends, because that business can spell success for a lot of things. It can mean a second location, it can mean an in-place expansion, it can mean graduating to own your own building, we would like to see that, or adding employees. And some timely examples of that are, for example, K. Novinger Jewelry, which is in the West Shore Plaza, a little different for us, but we like plazas. We want to work to reuse strip centers and so forth. They are now doubling their size by adding a companion spot to the back of the property. Mark Bricker, before he opened Brick, we worked with him in Shippensburg, and he promised me that when he was ready to do something else, I'd be his first call, and indeed we were. We had funded and financed and helped that building along. That building was just short of condemnation, I might suggest. And now it boasts one of Carlisle's most popular eateries. Cumberland's best. With your help and CDBG financing, they opened their first location in New Cumberland. It's right on the New Cumberland-Lemoyne line. And with our prompting and the success of the first run, they now have a place in Upper Allen Township. Cafe 62 is a new business in downtown Mechanicsburg. They're ready to make the leap and buy a property in downtown Carlisle for a live-work unit. This one's a little different. Kenneth B. Robinson and Associates. That's a structural engineering firm in downtown Mechanicsburg. Beautiful building. With the help of a local loan, they transformed that building. In 2009, they had 2 employees, the owner and an engineering technician. Today, they have 6 employees and room to grow in place. We add to the commercial inventory, like Tim suggested, thoughtfully converting homes to mom and shop stores and other types of businesses, and we go beyond borders. That's why we're assisting places like the Game Table, which is a Hamden Township. They need more space, we're assisting them. Will they go somewhere else in Hamden? Could be. We're going to provide a lot of different options to them. The Champ, which recently was displaced in Lemoyne Borough. They're looking for a place. Their needs are very, very unique, and it's unlikely that they will land in a downtown because of their requirements. But we'll help them, continue to help them. The truth is, your funding, your financial support makes a huge difference, a big difference for our very small towns and downtowns. All of our focus communities are back in for 2019. They've already pledged that, and with good reason. 80+ jobs, millions of dollars of investment and strategies that assure better places and better lives.
So thank you for the opportunity to talk with you today. Be happy to respond to any questions or thoughts that you may have.
I have one observation, and that is, Tim, we had pretty extensive discussion on types of performance measures and such.
Yes, sir.
And that's for a very good reason. I mean, I don't doubt that a lot of these, I've seen a number of these projects, I've patronized some. They're very nice, they certainly have some value, but as a board of commissioners, I feel we need to quantify anytime there's a request for, we need to justify a public subsidy, because there's plenty of other businesses out there that aren't coming asking for a public subsidy, shouldn't. So we've taken the tack, at least for the last number of years, particularly with the library system, and specifically with our economic people. When they come in, they have identified a specific need. It's generally very focused. They have set goals they have to achieve, and when they come back the next year, they're going to tell us what they achieved. And most of those cases, they also have to relate it to a bigger plan. I'm not seeing that here. So one of the things that we had suggested in our last conversation was that there be a number of metrics developed. And I think I just made a quick list up here, trying to recall, pull out of my brain from something months ago. We mentioned, so far I've not seen any of these here. Measurements of customer satisfaction. That's easy to accomplish. Identify different stakeholders, municipal officials, Chamber of Commerce, your downtown association, the applicants. I'd like to see customer satisfaction data. Financial reporting, especially in regards to economic impact. I'd like to know taxes paid. I'd like to know the retention rates on some of these businesses. Because if we're filling space and we're back 2 years ago filling the same space, I'm not sure we've really accomplished that. And I think that should be part of a regular reporting regimen as to what the long term has been for past applicants. How many are still in business? How many moved out of the downtown area? When I was on borough council, we had a number of concerted efforts to bring businesses downtown. As soon as they grew to a certain level, they moved out. They could afford some place with better parking or better amenities or nicer building, and they were gone. So it's highly questionable whether our subsidy had a lasting impact to us as a municipality. So those are good. Taxes paid, retention rate. I mentioned previously about, you mentioned the real estate upgrades. Those are certainly quantifiable. What about increased in assessed valuation? I'd love to see, if I'm a town manager, I want to see how the property valuations increasing, and I want to see what it's paid. So I think there's probably ways, there's not probably, there are ways of figuring out what spin-off effects accrue to a project or a combination of projects within a given geographic area. I personally have found in my involvement that the job creation numbers are not a very reliable indicator of much of anything, but even if we have those, it would be nice to measure what's the cost per job created, how much investment, not just our dollars, your dollars, all the dollars that went into a project, what was the cost per job? And is it a favorable or unfavorable comparison to what we're seeing elsewhere? If it's unfavorable, well, maybe we're willing to still pay that if some of the other benefits are there, but those also have to be quantifiable and visible. So we're being asked to put money into something, but we're not really given much by way of real hard numbers that allow us to make a choice. Are these nice? Yes, the pictures are nice, the businesses are nice, and I'm sure they're creating various benefits, hard and soft. So what we need to, in my opinion, be very stringent in how we are justifying requests for public subsidy for the private sector, because that's basically what this is. So I've seen none of these acted on. I would hope they're in some way in development, and that we would see those in the future, because without those, I personally, considering the stringency with which we required even just in the last year or two of the county library system, of the Economic Development Corporation, where they bring a specific project in, here's what we're going to do. I'd have a very hard time supporting this, frankly.
I understand.
Yes. First of all, I wanted to ask a question. I personally support the residential rental inspection effort. In fact, when I was a township commissioner, we were one of the first municipalities here in Cumberland County to actually implement that. And so now we have other municipalities. My question, Rebecca, has to do with before you pursue your advocacy for residential inspection ordinance in any of our municipalities, do you seek out the approval of the elected body?
Well,
The
frankly,
local elected officials?
certainly we do, but in some cases, the community drives the initiative. And a good example is Mount Holly. 3 years ago, as part of a county planning office, by the way, led survey and a series of public workshops, the community was asked, what matters most to you? Where are we failing? Where are we challenged? What can we do to improve Mount Holly Springs? And the top concern there was the condition of properties and property maintenance issues. And this happens across the board, but rentals always get the blame for that. Even though I don't know if the community had an idea of what the percentage was in terms of owner-occupied dwellings and rental properties. So they said, this is important to us. And then we talked about how we could address those issues. One is looking at the International Property Maintenance Code, another is rental inspection, others are programs that we can do to help all types of properties. And what Mount Holly will be doing at the end of this year is recognizing a property that's shown improvement, a commercial property, a residential property, and a rental property. You shouldn't be able to tell the difference, really, once it's a big multi-unit building. But the community said, this is what matters to us.
I appreciate that. One of the reasons I'm asking this question is, again, I think, it makes a lot of sense to me. I think that if you have a rental inspection program, residential, and you're a landlord, that it's almost like having a good housekeeping seal of approval in terms of, up to date with the codes and all that. And actually, I think improves your ability to get good tenants is what I'm getting at. But my question also, because we have a healthy respect here for local autonomy and our locally elected officials, we have 33 municipalities here. And they're all governed by a borough council, or they're governed by township supervisors, or they're governed by township commissioners. And so my question is, before we go in, you know, and kind of like supplant our ideas, do you gain the approval of the locally elected officials before we may advocate, you know, for like a rental inspection ordinance?
Yeah, so I go to the council meetings and I go to many of the committee meetings. Sometimes those are community development or like committees, sometimes they're zoning and ordinance committees, sometimes they're a little different. This need, this concern comes up via not only just the committee and council members, but the residents. A lot of what drives the rental inspection program, it's not meant to hurt or inhibit the landlords. We're trying to look out for both tenants and the property owners. And it's
but at the end of the day, my point is, at the end of the day, whether or not there's going to be an ordinance enacted to require, you know, an annual inspection or a residential rental property, you know, that's a local government decision.
It is.
And I don't think we should be, you know, foisting our, you know, not will, that's not the word I'm looking for. But, you know, I mean, I understand you say it's the residents, the community, but it's also up to the individual elected officials to represent those constituents. That's their job,
Right.
not ours.
They were all on board, and we had a.
So they were all on board.
They were on board.
And they.
There were some concerns about the International Property Maintenance Code and what that meant. But we had a study group, including several council members and members from the community, the borough manager, and the then code enforcement officer, who we met over the course of 2 years. We had an exhaustive public engagement and involvement process, and every council person and staff member had a role in that presentation. We actually called every single phoned every single landlord. In the end, yeah, council voted unanimously for the ordinance. We had, having gone through this in 2 earlier communities, I knew what to expect and from whom in terms of any concerns or pushback. And it was different. Every one of these is a little different and tailored to that municipality and their concerns. They ended up not adopting the International Property Maintenance Code because they felt it was too heavy-handed. They have a few more things in their checklist than others might, but it's going very well. And in the case of Carlisle Borough, there were 2 council members who I knew were very concerned and interested in this program. I met with them, shared my experiences with them. Well, then the Carlisle's approach would be very different. It is different here than in my other communities. And received a call a couple months ago from the borough planner / code enforcement official saying, I'd like to know how you did this in other communities and what we're working with here and what you might expect would be the response from the community and others.
Okay, now, you know, just, and by the way, in terms of, you know, the presentation here today, this is the most comprehensive presentation I've seen relative to, you know, outlining and detailing the results within the past year, you know, with respect to the downtown program. So, I mean, I'm kind of impressed by that. But when you get into areas like the international building codes and all that kind of stuff, we have a county planning department that's working with our municipalities on a regular basis. And essentially our planning department is, you know, putting forth, you know, model ordinances and things like that. And I'm a little concerned about us or your, in the downtown services program, kind of like stepping outside of the bounds and duplicating what's already occurring. I don't know that we should be interjecting our opinion on some of these things, and so that's one concern. The other thing I had, and I've mentioned this before, is you work in partnership with a handful of boroughs. You know, and the taxpayer dollars that we're providing, $17,000, is on behalf of all of our municipalities, not just those few where you concentrate most of your attention. And so along those lines, what's important here, and I understand the tools that you have available that maybe CADIC doesn't have, but how well do you collaborate with CADIC, in the programs that you offer and the programs that they offer in terms of being able to encourage revitalization, whether it's not just in our downtowns, but also our strip shopping malls and those other business centers, if you will, in our county, not just the downtowns, but the boroughs. Because I think that is critical here in terms of making sure that, essentially there's no wrong door and that we are able to accomplish what we all want.
Yeah, if I may, Commissioner, right these days we're getting along pretty well with our friends at CADIC. We still do have regular and routine meetings. We meet on a minimum monthly basis with them. Our most recent meeting was this past Monday. Recently, we also added in Kirkstoner is now going to be a regular addition into those meetings as well. And looking for ways to work cooperatively because they have some tools and resources and funding schemes that we don't have. But then there are also things that we have that they don't have, or where we're focusing our efforts. So I think we're getting along really well. We're like Shireen and I talk regularly and routinely. And another example where we're getting along really well, you all may remember that the Urban Land Institute did a special project focusing on West Fairview.
Yep.
And so on Monday afternoon, Kurt Stoner, myself, Kate Molinaro, and Valerie from CADIC met with representatives from East Pennsboro Township to talk about how do you then take this report that the Urban Land Institute has created and how do you move it towards action. And starting to lay out some steps so that it's in cooperation with, first and foremost, it's got to be in sync with fully and completely the comprehensive plan, which they're just now finishing up and hope to have finished by the end of this year there in East Pennsboro Township. So got to work through that first. We're all okay about that, but we've already scheduled, we're looking to schedule another meeting with the folks at East Pennsboro in early January, because that'll be after the comprehensive plan is complete. It'll be clearly stating this is what the township would like to create and how they want to deal with the village of West Fairview, which has a number of challenges from a housing perspective, signage needs, entrances, into there, how to deal with the new commercial aspects that may be beneficial there, recreational aspects, tying it all together. So I think with regards to CADIC, we're communicating regularly, and we're just like Shireen, we're looking forward to the hiring of the new director there, so that we can start building a good, strong relationship.
I would add to that I see the downtown program services complementing CADIC services. We have an MOU in place that says downtowns are with the redevelopment authority. But having said that, they have access to tools. They receive the hotel fund, the hotel tax funds, which provides a lot of things that we don't have, but our downtowns could use. So a good example would be Market Cross Pub. And I talked with them a couple of years ago. They were interested in a new front and a storefront similar to Alibi's, except that would open from the floor to the ceiling, allowing them to have that indoor-outdoor feel. They're not going to get a whole lot more outside in front, but that feel, which is so important in the summer to drive customers. You don't have that in the summer, you're missing the pure gold. They were also interested in developing a beer garden, which is a little area behind the Market Cross Pub. That fit in well. That fit in perfectly with the tourism development grant. You couldn't use a Cumberland Street View grant to do that work, but you could use the tourism grant. So they finished that a little over a year ago, and now we're working with them on a street view grant for that new front, that new storefront. So we allowed them to go first with that because that was their priority. We needed a little more work to get some things together for the design of the front, but I expect that will move ahead. It's, I believe, something I've listed under Cumberland Street View for 2019.
Okay, well, your office is physically located where Katie is, right?
10 feet away.
Okay. So on that, what you just talked about, essentially, you initiated a conversation with Katie with respect to the tourism grant, or in other words, how is that interaction occurring, and is it occurring on a regular basis?
Well, we talked with them about the street view grant. First of all, they indicated in that they were looking at the beer garden. I can't say that I said, oh, there's a tourism development grant. I imagine that they went to Katie aware of the tourism development grant and talked with them probably simultaneously.
See, all I'm suggesting is it's important that with all of the efforts that we have relative to revitalization, economic renewal, whether it's in our downtowns or not in our downtowns, this is the test we're getting from our president. So anyway,
I thought I had this turned off.
the presidential alert, right? Okay.
Yeah, it's working.
So.
I feel left out, I don't get
Mine's cool.
We don't have silos. We're all working together. Okay. So that would just be my comment. Again, I think with respect to things like the residential rental inspection order, the international building codes, all those kind of things, I think we ought to let our planning department work with our municipalities on those things. I really do. We shouldn't be, forcing our opinions on the locally elected officials. Now, so now Holly Springs has one, right? The rental inspection orders.
They do.
Okay.
They wanted
And
it.
so, well, that's my question. So how did we offer that suggestion to them, or how did that come?
Well, actually, those community visioning sessions, which turned out as the need for better property maintenance as the winner, that predated my work in Mount Holly.
Okay.
That predated my work in Mount Holly.
So they were moving forward with the adoption of a residential
They were thinking about
rental
it.
inspection.
Yeah, and I come in and work with them starting 2.5 years ago, a little more than 2.5 years ago. I already had the experience in working with the municipality to put that in place. But I'm certain they would tell you it was not foisted. They are independent thinkers. They can vote the way they feel like it. They can tell me to
Because
get laws.
they're elected to represent the people.
Absolutely, and the people said we want this. But even more in these other communities, all the ordinances are building blocks for the downtowns and for the businesses. That zoning is terribly important. The ordinances are very, very important. I can tell you that when I started in this job, there were certain communities, there's always a perception of who lives downtown. That's changed quite a bit in Carlisle. It's changing other places, and that's because we've cleaned things up. We've made Carlisle, for example, a place you would choose to live. I have people, Krista Novinger, the lady I mentioned who's doubling her store space, when I started working with her, and she was looking all over. She didn't have a storefront. She had a business and was working out of her home. She had me in Camp Hill. All of her customers came from Camp Hill. I said, that's unfortunate because the world's a big place. And some of her jewelry pieces are $30,000. We have some other people that could afford that across Cumberland County. We looked a lot of places. She would not go to Mechanicsburg. She would not go. Why? And I had to drill down as to why. Well, it looks dirty and dank, and I don't like people I see hanging around, and the storefronts are all empty, and this is 10 years ago. She ended up in the West Shore Plaza in Lemoyne after looking at many, many different places. She never thought she would end up there, but that's where she is, and she's expanding. There's a perception of who lives downtown, and little by little, as we work with these property owners and these commercial buildings, we turn them around top to bottom, inside and out. And that sometimes, that means too, a better quality tenant who stays there longer, pays more rent, causes less problems. That's a big part of it. It's very important to the synergy, the energy, and the traction that revitalization, that's part of revitalization. But Mount Holly isn't, their town's downtown's a little different. It's not as recognizable as some of the other places because they have this sprinkling of residential properties amongst the offices and the limited retail they have there. But they care about all of it. And commercial properties are inspected. Now they have the rental, and they're very pleased with it.
Folks have any other things you want to bring up? We got
another piece here. I understand the issue about metrics. Some of those numbers that you'd asked about, we tried to spell out in here about what the investment is. What we didn't spell out as well is like in places where an about-face grant was given, which are usually pretty modest amounts, and how that ties in there. That's easy for us to be able to quantify here quickly. And we can look forward at the end as we finish up this year to those customer satisfaction pieces and others that you're asking about.
So, in what you're saying, the metrics that Commissioner Eichelberger has requested, you can provide.
Yeah, some of those we can do almost immediately, adjusting, with regards to the first part, where we talked about the investments, how much of that was private investment, how much of that was public investments in those things like, the about-face grants and the like that helps to facilitate. Other loans that may have been for things like CDBG and the like.
So is there anything else you're looking for?
No, I think I'm fine, and be honest with you, I think I can support this. I wanted to check with the exact figure, because you're asking for 17 grand.
Yes, sir.
And was that the same amount that
as last year? Yes.
The same amount as last year? I thought it was a little lower last year.
No, it was 17.
It was 17.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I do think that this is well done in terms of demonstrating the results that you can show for 2018. So I'm willing to support it again, with the understanding that you're going to continue to work in close cooperation with Katie and make sure that we continue to work together, and also just be cautious with respect to overstepping responsibilities. Our locally elected officials are responsible for the enactment of laws and in terms of governing what kind of codes that they have. So I would make sure that as you pursue some of these things, make sure that the local elected officials are on board with what we're doing or what we're suggesting we do. So, just because we do, I have a deep respect, as I think Gary and Vince do as well, for the issues that our local elected officials have to deal with, because we've all been there. Okay.
I understand. Thank you very much for your time and your considerations. Much appreciated.
Okay, well, Tim, if you can get that information to us, I would like to go through this. I think I probably can, but it would be nice to have all board's questions before we make the motion.
We can certainly get that to you promptly.
All right.
Yes.
That sounds good.
Okay. Thank you all.
both.
Thank you for your consideration and your direction. So.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
All right. Have a good day, Tim. You too.
I do. All right. Everything great? You're good. We're up there. How are you?
There it is, Charlie Hall.
Hey, how you doing?
You guys, sorry for the delay.
That's all right.
We got a lot of stuff happening.
Yeah.
Appreciate your patience. All right, we'll get right into it. We have, Charlie, you have something you want to present to us?
Yeah.
You have a paper copy?
Yeah, I
If you want
do.
to go over
I do.
the overhead here, we can
Yeah.
do that.
Okay.
Hit the
Perfect.
You have a remote.
Here. Oh, I got it.
Matt doesn't want it.
He can drive on. He's on the first second.
Okay.
Right. Oh,
Okay.
no.
The first slide here is the projected cost for our project. The top line is the autopsy equipment. That's the quote from
company called MOPEC. And the second line is the county maintenance, that's John Lopp's portion to do the renovations to the building. And then we figured in some extra there in case we run into something we didn't foresee during construction or something we're gonna need that we didn't figure out. And this is an outline of our caseload and our autopsies since 2012. As you can see, since 2012, our caseload is continuing to rise. So far, as of 9/26 of 2018, we had 668 cases. I think we're up to 691 now. So that's probably more likely going to exceed last year's total. The autopsies, you can see from year to year, they've been averaging about 71 a year is what we've been doing. We figured out an average over those 5 years. And we average about 71 autopsies per year. And this is the cost figures. Cost per autopsy of dolphins, 1950 is going to be the same at our facility, 1950. That's for Dr. Ross's fortune. The morgue fees and storage, we pay Dauphin County $450 per autopsy. We won't have that cost in our facility. And then you figure in the transfer of the body and the mileage and the deputy's labor to transport to and from autopsies, it's about $80 per autopsy.
So Charlie, just so I understand, Dr. Ross would then come over to the county?
Yes, he would come to our facility.
Okay.
And this gives you a breakdown of the autopsies from 2012 up through the present date. We did 69 in 2012. Now, in 2012 and 2013, we were doing them at Lehigh. Now, we had the transport cost to Lehigh at that time, but we didn't have the morgue fees that we're paying Dauphin. However, that figure in the lower right corner of $199,750 is figuring if we would have had to pay morgue fees to Dauphin for those, if we did them at Dauphin then and we paid morgue fees like we are now, we would have paid Dauphin County almost $200,000 since 2012 just in morgue fees.
Which you're saying we're not going to have those.
We're not going to have the morgue fees
Okay.
if we have our own facility.
And that's the 450, the 450, right?
Yes, per autopsy. Now, if you look down here at the bottom, the current fees to Dauphin will go towards the new morgue lease with an average savings between Dauphin fees and transport fees of $37,736 yearly. And if you figure in the lease, the electric subtracted from that $37,000, the county will still see a net savings of $16,564 a year. And this is just the square footage. We currently have 3,255 square feet in my office. The added square footage for the new morgue is an additional 2,250 square feet for a total of 5,505 square feet at $8.61 a square foot. The electric bill is estimated at $1,800. The water, sewer, and trash is being paid by the landlord. And it's a 10-year lease. And then the total yearly cost for the new site. And then you see attachment for MOPEC fees, that's the estimated cost for the equipment. The county maintenance costs are projected to be $126,000. And additional costs from the current budget, we figure for a computer, printer, 2 telephones, lines, 2 wall-mounted monitors for x-rays, label printer.
Is that the annual cost?
Which figure here?
The county maintenance cost are projected to be $126,000. Is that annual?
No, that's the cost to renovate, for John's crew to renovate the facility.
I see. Perfect.
And then that's just a few extras we could think off right off the top of the bat that wasn't figured in those figures. This drawing here is the morgue area where the way it exists now. square footage area that we want to lease from the landlady. And the renovations we're gonna make is basically we're gonna take this wall here that was here, we're gonna take that out, extend it out like this. This would be the cooler area. This is a garage area here that would be our space also. This is where we keep our mass casualty trailer now.
I was over there, right? I saw it.
Yes.
I know, okay.
Yeah. And the way it would work, we would back our truck in here, remove the body, come into the cooler from this side, and then when we do it for autopsy, we take it out that side and bring it over here.
So we have access to that garage now?
Yes.
Okay, and the build out would be extended into the garage space?
Yes. Yes. The mass casualty trailer sits right in here somewhere.
All right, so that'll continue to stay?
Yeah. And this area here is where we would actually do the autopsies. And then this area over here is just the sink and some cabinet storage. This is one bathroom here with 3 lockers for changing. And then this is another bathroom here with a shower and 2 other lockers. And then this area is histology storage where we would have to store our specimens and anything we would have to keep from the autopsy. This area here is just an area, a work area where Dr. Ross would look through a microscope if we had to, and some cabinet storage there. And this is a little office area here with a printer and a computer and some bookcases and stuff. This is a sort of a bird's eye view of it.
Joe, can I ask, where did you get like the ideas for the layout of this? Or
That was actually, we met with Mopec. I met with him originally when he was on vacation and did an overall, but Mopec designs specifically autopsy suites and morgue areas for funeral directors. So they actually came to the office, Mopec's rep. We had 2 reps that come in and we met with them, went over the kind of the design layout.
They actually gave us a drawing of this area right here, just this area. And John wanted a more detailed drawing, so I drew this out with the computer, give it a little more detail. And we also talked to other coroners that have their own facility and got ideas from them. One good idea that we saw in Washington County was the floor drain around the autopsy area here. It's just a horseshoe drain around here that everything gets hosed into the floor drain. That's just another bird's eye view of it. And this is the autopsy area. These are 2 autopsy tables, one here with a sink and storage on either side. And this is the office area out in the front with the computer and the phone and printer and some bookcase storage. And this is the very front of our area that goes out into the parking lot. There's 4 windows there currently now. This door would come into that office area I just showed you. And this is an overall, that whole wall there. This is that area where Dr. Ross would look in his microscope if he had to review anything in his microscope. And 2 bathrooms and our histology storage area. And this is part of the morgue area room here. And this is the cabinets in the morgue area, storage cabinets in the sink here. And that's the 3 lockers in the 1 bathroom. And that's the other wall of the bathroom. And then 2 lockers in the shower in the 1 bathroom. And then the other wall of the bathroom, just a vanity sink as well as a pantry cabinet to store towels and washcloth and that kind of stuff if somebody has to take a shower. And that's 3 shelves for storage and histology in the histology room. And then that's the other half of the area where Dr. Ross will look at his microscope. and that's the other histology wall.
That's that part.
That's that part. And I'll let Matt take over from here.
Just to touch base on the MOPEC, as I said, the design layout. What we did is, went on obviously the most easiest, I want to say, more convenient way to set up the autopsy suite. So this isn't $1 million suite. This is a, within range and scope of our county. I believe we also shoot in the future. So we did think outside the box. We have added some, like you see, a bariatric autopsy cart. We currently don't have any of those, but with using the autopsy carts as transport carts, trying to double the purpose of them, we're saving a little bit of money doing it that way. We had to buy new carts, obviously, to put the bodies on, put them in the oversized morgue. We went over this, I'd say probably 4 or 5 times with MOPEC, trying to bring the design into the scope that we were looking to. The current space that is there is really just a warehouse with a box built inside of it currently that she had rented and used before. It's been empty for, probably 10 years now. So that's why we got the price of the $861 a square foot. She gave us the same price I think we're paying now.
Yeah, please.
If I'm not mistaken. Was willing to give us that 10-year lease for that price.
The one thing we did figure in this area of the morgue area here is a floor scale to weigh the bodies. We would just drive the cot right onto the scale and weigh the body. Because now we sort of guesstimate it, and sometimes we have hassles with families and stuff when he's not that big, that kind of thing, So we really should be weighing the bodies. So we have a scale in this price figured every year.
The current space that we're using for the trailer storage, we're not getting charged for it. I don't think there's any one around about that. She's just letting us store it there for now, at no charge. So we do have that space, that's like.
Here's what I'm seeing, guys, and tell me if I'm wrong. We would save about $37,000 a year because we wouldn't be paying more fees, or travel fees.
Right.
The additional lease would be about $21,000 a year with electric. It comes out to about $16,000 a year saving.
That's saving, yes.
It would cost us to do this $325,000.
Right.
So you're looking at a 20+ year payback. Correct.
So you recoup that, what you're saying?
You have the facility bill out of $325, but you also have $213,000 in rent for the 10 years.
Yes, all right.
Yeah.
And then if you add another 5, that's like $645,000 if the rent stays the same.
Well,
You mean the current, the 10-year, we're on the 10-year lease? Yeah.
Are there grants or available to assist?
I don't really
Yeah, I don't know. I would say the only grants would be if the partnership with another county or facility or something that would probably, I know they're pushing them pretty hard to not be specific for one specific county. We're all working with it.
Can I give any comments?
I think I would definitely encourage the search for grant money, and maybe work with somebody else in the county. I'm not sure how much experience you have with grants, if you guys do that all the time, or if you have someone in your office that does that, but if you don't, I think there are people in the county that do that on an ongoing basis that might be able to help out. Because I know in the past, people have come to me saying, hey, we have grant money to do this, this, or that. And it usually dealt with building a building or doing something with their current facility. And I believe there's grant money out there, but I wouldn't know how to go about accessing it, but there are people in
Sure,
the county
yeah.
that could probably help out doing that. And if that were the case, that would make this a lot more attractive to the county. And it also may give us a little bit of leeway here with all the other projects we have going on. If you like say you get a grant in 2019 or 2020, then we come back to the table and we look at it again and see if it's a cost-effective move for the county.
Yeah, we originally met with Skip, who was willing to put some money towards this. We don't know what amount that would be from the drug money. Because this is all varying on the autopsies we're doing for the drugs. And that's, we're kind of waiting on that point just to see if we're going to do all the drug tests or we're going to do partial ones or not at all.
The other thing is, and transparent, being totally transparent, if we don't have the time to do that project, it would have to be bid out at prevailing wage. And you could double that cost that I gave you.
The 126?
Yeah. Yeah. They usually come in at, now I was asked to include labor in that cost, which I normally don't do. And so I did estimate a labor charge for what we pay. But if it would be bid out, it would be a prevailing wage project.
Jamie, I mean,
I just was gonna say the upfront project costs, I think, are some of the concerns here. And so if there were grant monies that could cover that, or on the backside of the operating, it looks like this, as John said, would be much more attractive with the turnaround and payback.
yeah, once that initial cost is covered, it makes sense, it certainly makes sense. If we can get that 20 years down, just in my opinion, getting that down to a better number. Jim Carrey.
I think the payback is a little bit of an extended period of time. I'm curious though, also, if we sink $325,000 into this, have we ever done that with a leased facility before?
We did upfront costs on lease renovations before when we moved to district justices. We've been fortunate that our staff has been able to do mostly all that work, except for maybe one DJ where we built a completely new building. And there's upfront costs when we do that for our maintenance and our labor and for the materials. But it is a cost savings to the county going forward if you have to do that. Because if it wouldn't be for that, you have to definitely bid the projects out. So that has occurred before, John.
So do we have an agreement on the lease for the building through 2018 or 2028?
She would give us that. She's already agreed to give us a 10 years.
We're currently on a 5 and 10
Yeah.
right now. A 5-year with the option to renew for 5.
She also said in the event she would want to sell the building, she would give the county the right to first refusal, or she would also make it a stipulation to the buyer that they have to keep our lease. So.
I was just wondering, because if and whether we get grant money or whatever, that's a significant investment, or additional investment in that building. So, you won't want to.
And I don't know if this is another question about grant money. Will they let you put grant money in the lease building? I don't know. We have to check into that.
Yeah. Well.
And Dana also pointed out to me that normally these types of projects go through the capital committee. So that may be an additional step too, but the board was very interested in getting this. Yeah, this was good to see.
I know, you and I talked about this some time ago, and I was kind of.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, I looked at, since 2012, we would have paid Dauphin County $200,000 in rent in 6 years, basically. Now, granted, we haven't rented a new facility, but,
Maybe between any grants and or what Skip may have, might help change the dynamics, the financial dynamics of
Yeah,
this
we didn't-
significant.
We didn't approach him yet, and he was waiting till we got this all together, we just finished this, so.
It's
Yeah,
clear.
but just so I'm clear, understanding, what you're saying is we can, the projections, we can save $16,564 a year, but it's gonna cost us at least
Yeah, from-
$325,000.
Yeah, the upfront cost.
Right. That's what we have to work on.
Yeah.
I think it's a good idea.
I mean, like I say, we're the fastest growing county in the state. I don't expect my numbers to be going down. I just heard a rumor the other day that the new hospital that Penn State wants to build is going to be a level 1 trauma center. Now, I don't know how true that is,
We just got the.
I mean, if they start flying Lifeline in there on a regular basis, then I'll have 2 trauma centers. So,
Yeah, we've got 2 trials. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
It's kind of strange.
It's a competition all about the money,
Oh, yeah, but the drugstores,
Yeah.
Walgreens and Rite Aid and whatever, right next to each other. Okay. You guys have anything else?
Nope.
Got any more
Thanks
questions?
a lot. Appreciate your.
Thank you, I appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Any other business we need to discuss? Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting? We are adjourned, thank you.